Hey, this is Matt Waldman with the Rookie Scouting Portfolio Film Room, and today I am joined by Lance Zierlein of the Sideline View. And Lance is just, he is probably one of the more talented folks out there when it comes to providing football analysis, as well as the work that he does on air. And I know Sigmund and Bloom has him on the couch on a regular basis. And I think Bloom and I have both talked about that if there's somebody out there that you would think in the next, 3 to 4 years you're going to be hearing their name a lot more on a larger scale. If that's what he wants, we would think this guy is most deserving. So Lance, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing.
Right now, I'm involved with, obviously, on my own website, the sidelineview.com, working with, doing some analysis. We are a little heavier draft-wise behind the scene, looking at some players now than we've been in the past. We're getting a little deeper into analytics. Still do my fantasy football stuff that I've been doing for years. Working on some scouting reports for a couple of college teams, helping them prepare for future matchups. And then Scouting Academy. ScoutingAcademy.com is something that was created. Jerry Angel and I partnered with Alan Dandar and also Dan Hatman, who are a couple of former NFL scouts. In Scouting Academy, we use real NFL coaches, Wade Phillips, Charlie Coiner, Steve Loney, John Lever, some really, really talented coaches, former NFL coaches. A lot of times these are guys who are either retired or temporarily retired, as they say in the coaching business, and they help you learn what to look for in terms of evaluating talent and taking your evaluating to the next level. So whether it's learning the position, which I think for me, Matt, the key to evaluating talent in any position is learning the position. You really have to learn what to look for. We can all, act like we know what we're looking for, but until you really hear from or visit with a position coach, you're always going to be a little bit in the dark. So anytime you get a chance to hear from a position coach who tells you these are the areas that I look for, and this is how a player should be coached when it comes to technique, especially along the offensive and defensive lines, really anywhere. Quarterback, cornerback, safety, linebacker. Technique is, if you don't have proper technique, you won't last long in the NFL. So learning what the proper technique is, for me, is essential when it comes to evaluating talent.
Love that. And obviously you also have a background with someone pretty well who happens to be a longtime position coach in the NFL.
Right.
Can you expound upon that a little bit to folks who may not be initiated to you?
Yeah, my father's been a college and pro football coach since 1978. Started out with the University of Houston and Bill Yeoman with the veer option attack. He's coached at Tulane, at University of Cincinnati, on a staff that included Rex Ryan, Mike Tomlin, Jimbo Fisher. It was a pretty incredible staff, actually. And Rick Mentor was the head coach on that team. He has been with the Cleveland Browns. He broke into the NFL, I think, 2000, 2001 with Butch Davis with the Cleveland Browns. Then he coached for a year in Buffalo before being hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers, won a Super Bowl ring with the Steelers, retired, and then came out of retirement after 3 years as Bruce Arians asked him to come over and work with the Arizona offensive lineman on technique. So he's assistant offensive line coach with the Arizona Cardinals right now.
So this is going to be a great, I think what we're going to find here is a great education today for a lot of our readers and for myself when it comes to looking at some of the facets of offensive line play, because the first guy that we're going to watch today is left tackle from Iowa, Brandon Scherff. We're going to watch his Michigan State tape from 2013. And for those of you who are catching this podcast or this hangout for the first time, we're going to watch the tape. We're going to share it on the screen. It's oftentimes we're going to be looking at it at half speed. There's going to be a lot of dead air sometimes. We're going to be talking about a variety of different things. It's kind of a stripped down podcast show in terms of what we do here. So, I found, we've got a lot of good feedback thus far with it. But again, this is just two guys watching some tape and getting a chance to share what they see. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen, and let me know, Lance, if there's anything that you can't see or if we have any issues or hiccups as we go along here. So, all right. Can you see that?
I can see it.
All right, we're good to go. Let me go and widen that out. And let's get this rolling. And I'm gonna keep the volume off so that we can just kind of talk and go from there.
Okay. I cannot see the screen right now.
Okay.
I think you got to set up to.
There we go. I think that's the issue. There we go. Can you see it now?
I cannot.
Okay. Let's try one more time. All right.
All right, I got it.
There we go.
All right, so what I'm looking for here is I already know, let's pause it for a second. I already know that, Brandon Scherff is a very weight room strong player. He's got great mass and great size. I want to see the functional strength. Here's what I'm going to look for. I already know the functional strength is going to be good, and that's the first thing that you need to look for with any offensive lineman. If you're not functionally strong, you can't play in the NFL. Reject, and it's over. You may make it on a team for a year or two, but you will not be a successful NFL player, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for successful, and you're looking for competent. And so it's not always, I think too many fans get too caught up, or draft types get too caught up in looking for all pros. They're looking for pancake blocks. Well, you need to learn what you're looking for. And sometimes you're looking for a functional blocker, a guy that gets his job done. It may not look beautiful. He may not have a great body type, but is he consistently using his technique properly, and is he consistently, ending up on the right side of these matchups? That's what you have to look for. So for Scherff, here's what I want to look for. I'm going to look for functional strength, which I already know is a check, but I still want to see it. I want to look for not only good foot movement, but the right foot movement and the right steps. I am going to look for tenacity. I want to see a guy who plays through the whistle, to the whistle, and sometimes through the whistle. And then something that a lot of offensive linemen have an issue with, I want to see how he stays engaged on the move with his run blocks or on the second level. Many offensive linemen will make that first hit, but their hands aren't strong enough to hang on to whatever their target is. And so I want to find offensive linemen that are good at, snatching that target and then hanging on to whoever their target is, so that, that they remain blocked, so they don't fall off their block. So let's take a look at those are some of the elements that I'm going to be looking for, some of the basic elements at a left tackle position for Brandon Scherff.
And I think that's a great intro to what you need to look for. And I love the point that you talked about consistency versus an all-star moment, because like you said, talking about people looking for all-star moments or looking for that next stud, as opposed to the fact that most NFL players exhibit a level of consistency that is so high at what they do. It's not about making the great plays all the time as much as being competent at what you do. And being competent is being consistent and as error-free as possible when it comes to specific goals of what you're looking for in an execution of technique or process.
Yeah, and similarly, don't get too caught up in a really bad rep. I mean, guys get beat on the other side of the ball as well. That happens, and I think too often the reason that people miss with their draft evaluations, especially on offensive line, is they'll see a bad rep, even a bad game, and decide that this guy can't play. I mean, you have to remain open-minded through the process. You have to look at a guy for 5 or 6 games. You just have to. The same way you'll get burned by a guy who has a really great game and you think that this is how he always plays, you can get burned by a guy that you think can't play because he had a really bad game. Unless you're privy to injury information, you don't know if the guy was injured. You don't know if the guy had some personal problems that led to a distraction in the game. So try to have as broad a base of background experience with the player as you possibly can. I don't know, Matt, if you can, we'll get started. I don't know if you can widen out the screen even more. If this is, let's get a little wider screen.
Let's see if we can do it, as it's missing when I go full. You can't see that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. How about now?
Yep.
Okay, good.
So there's Brandon Scherff, the left tackle. And let's take a look. We got it in slow motion. Good first step out. And you see engages, has the one hand, that uses the one hand technique instead of 2 hands, helps him stay on balance a little bit more, and it gives him length. It helps him lengthen out here. Use 2 hands. 2 arms are not as long as 1 arm. You can get more length with 1 arm. So what he wants to do here, and we'll stop it, is right here he wants to take the defensive end. The defensive end's doing a pretty good job of setting the edge, trying to get to a 45-degree angle. So what Scherff has to do is just get him backed off and widen him out as much as he can so he opens up a crease, and that's what he's done here. Keeps the foot moving, keeps the feet moving, continues, finishes.
Yeah, it's a really nice display right there too. And that one hand, it seems like it gives him the chance to be able to maintain the leverage that he needs to move.
Yeah, it really does. It allows him to be in control of the movement as opposed to, getting off balance sometime when you use two hands. I know it sounds strange, but it actually gave him the leverage he wanted to. Here we are. Go ahead.
One last time there, yeah, because I mean it's interesting if you get that second arm out there and you can see how you would come out over your hips and probably overextend to some level there, or
go back again, and you're going to notice he tries to turn those hips. He uses that shoulder, and because he has that great weight room strength, he can do this. You'll see right here, watch him turn the hips right here. Try to use the hips to turn and get right there, the defensive end kicked out. It didn't work as well as he wanted, but that's an idea of a guy who understands how to use his power and his hips.
That's great. That's great. And you see that so much with so many positions is the flexibility of the hips, how they use the hips to cut, to turn.
Flexibility is a huge, huge issue. You don't have to have it, but if you don't, you're going to lack some power and you're going to lack consistency. Here he is trying to get across the face, cut block, as you saw from the guard in front of him. So his job then, let's go back. Sometimes you're going to have a tackle, a lot of times on these outside zone plays, the job of that tackle will be to get across the face of, for example, on this kind of the shaved nose. So a lot of times you'll see the guard go up to the next level and pick off the Mike linebacker, one of the inside backers, and so it'll be up to Scherff to get across the face of that nose. What Iowa did there is they take their guard and they're just going to cut that nose, and then they're going to bring Scherff around, and his job is to get up to the second level. So it can be blocked two different ways. Iowa just chose to take an athletic tackle in Scherff and utilize him to try to get up to the second level as opposed to the guard. They made the nose tackle the most important block there, and they used an easier block, quite frankly, with the guard. As you see, Scherff is not going to be able to get to his guy, and that's one. And let's pause it for a second, Matt. This is something you shouldn't kill offensive linemen for all the time. Getting a second level block at a tough angle like that when you're the backside blocker on an outside zone, that's a very, very difficult block to make. Even the best athletes at times have a hard time because if you've got a linebacker that reads his keys properly and flows hard to the ball, it's a very difficult block to get. It's about taking good angles too. I think Scherff could have taken a little bit better angle to seal off 28. Let's look at it one more time. His primary job right here is to just get inside of 28, make 28 come up underneath or to the right of Scherff. So Scherff probably should have continued a little bit tighter angle towards, like, let's say where the right guard would have been.
Like so right here, plant and turn if he could have.
Yeah, or no, actually, Matt.
Oh, further up.
Flowing further towards the ball so that 28 has to go to the right around you. That's, in essence, you're getting a seal block there. And instead, he tried to head up, get him, and the quickness of 28 was too much for him.
That makes sense. And still, like you said, the context of this play, you're looking at a guy who's really on somebody who's about a defensive back-size linebacker on this outside trying to get to that space. That's a difficult move to make.
All right, 3rd and 7, obvious pass pro. So we'll pause it here. What I'm going to look for is I want to see how quickly, there's two guys right now who are a threat. You've got the wide 5 technique, and then you got the outside backer who could be coming. So right now, we're going to find out how they've got this blocked up. Brandon Scherff, sometimes, there can be twists. So I like to watch how tackles, how aware they are about when a game's being run on them with a twist between players. And when it comes up, I'll point it out and we'll slow it down. So let's take a look right now at how relaxed the arms and the hands are as Brandon Scherff gets into his kick slide and starts to get back. You don't want those hands high. You want them down, almost like a boxer or a basketball player defensively. And the idea of tackle play, it's my dad describes it as it's basketball combined with boxing. You want to be able to slide those feet like a basketball player and have the punch like a boxer where you get a jab extended, one hand, boom. and you're popping a defender with the quick, jab, basically. So here's what I'm looking for. I want to see a smooth takeaway with quick feet. I want to see his ability to keep those hands relaxed and the arms relaxed, and then time up his punch correctly. And then also we may have to look for change of direction. Let's see where it goes. Okay, right now he's eyeballing his. Okay, this is a little bit more of a quick set. A quick set is going to be when you get your hands on the defender. A lot of times it will be right at the snap. Jason Peters is famous for that. Some tackles will continue to retreat. You better be really talented if you're going to do that. And I like the fact that Scherff gets his hands on a bigger pass rusher early on. I think that gives him a chance to win quickly. Hard to tell on this. You want to keep those hands inside of the defender. You don't want the defender getting into your chest too quickly because then they can bull rush you. So you want your hands inside if you're a tackle, and you'd like to be able to make a first contact with that defensive end. One thing to keep in mind here, Matt, is that you don't shoot your punch too early when you're a tackle if you're dealing with guys who are quick with their hands defensively, because they will just brush your hands away and get after the quarterback.
What do you think also of him also going back to a one-arm technique on this particular play as the guy gets upfield?
Just fine. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. And the reason why is, here's something a lot of people don't know about technique right here. His first hand, the dominant hand should be his inside hand. That goes for all tackles. Your dominant hand should be your inside hand. So for a left tackle, it should be your right hand, and for a right tackle, it should be your left hand. This is the hand that you utilize, because if a pass rusher wants to rush around the edge, you don't want to give him that inside spin move. That's why that right hand is so important. And so that's why coaches teach your first hand, make it that inside hand, your right hand. It goes against what you would think. You think, well, no, you got to get your left hand on them. They're rushing from the outside. That's where your foot quickness and technique come in. Use your body to shield and make them go around, and then you can ride a defensive end around the pocket. Run the arc, run them around the tackle. So right here, Brandon Scherff, you'll see it's his inside arm. His inside hand is the one that has contact and the one he's utilizing. That way he's got his left arm free to engage anytime he wants to. He's in control of the situation. He's got guard help, as you can see. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and it looks great in terms of again, he maintains good leverage that way too. He's not overextending into it where, if the guy gets upfield and is able to get outside with both arms, if he's leaning too far forward, he could be done in that instance as well. Well, that's great stuff, Lance. It's great stuff. Oops, here we go.
All right, let's go back. Let's see what happened here. As it's hard to tell because we didn't see how he got off, but I'll just tell you this right now. Right off the bat, that technique is a problem. Let's see. Let's go back to this. Okay, right here. You already see he's already turning his body. Now, what offensive line coaches want to see is a tackle who can, get his kick slides but keep those shoulders square to the line of scrimmage as long as he can before he turns, because once you turn, you lose some of that power, and you all of a sudden, it's called opening the door. You're not opening the door for the defensive end to try to beat you around your shoulder. You're not as widened out as when you're flat to the line of scrimmage. So right here, you already see Brandon Scherff has already turned. His hips are already turned, and now he's opening the door to the defensive end who can get leverage. Let's see how he gets that leverage, because even the strongest, right there you see kind of ragdolls. Brandon Scherff grabs him, pulls, and is able to get Scherff leaning forward off balance. And that's how he's able to turn the corner.
That's great work, and it's great work to see what you're saying here from this standpoint, because when you see that opened up, where you see that punch right to his inside shoulder, knocks him back a step.
Yeah, off balance. That's the key. It's about balance as an offensive lineman and defensive lineman. You're constantly who can win the battle of leverage and balance. You want to go see the way it really should be done on a consistent basis, go watch Jake Matthew videos from Texas A&M, or watch them with the Atlanta Falcons. Guy stays square longer than a lot of tackles, and there's a level confidence and poise for when to shoot the punch, and he doesn't panic and lose his technique. You saw Scherff panic a little bit and lose his technique there.
That's great, and I love always hearing pro examples of guys to watch, so that's terrific.
Just basic shield block. First step is inside instead of outside. You don't want to make that step outside because you give the defensive end a straight line inside. Just basic wall off block. 3rd and 6, going to be a pass pro. Let's see how long he can stay square here. All right. Turns a little earlier. Once again, you're seeing right now he's giving up that shoulder, and I think that's coachable. That's just asking him if you want to extend out. He's going to go out towards the. I think his feet are okay here in terms of going out towards the defender. But one thing you're going to notice, even with this, go backwards just a little bit, Matt. At the point of impact of a punch of an offensive lineman, pause it. At the point of impact, you want your feet, your heels to be flat on the ground. For whatever reason, there's people who just don't understand technique that will tell you, guys need to play on the balls of their feet. That's not necessarily true. At the point of impact, you want an offensive lineman needs to have his chin up, he needs to have the back flat, and he needs to have his feet flat on the ground when he shoots that punch. And Brandon Scherff right here, that's not the case. He's not really in control of the situation here. His feet aren't where he wants them to be. He doesn't have a good, strong base. He's trying to use natural strength as opposed to technical strength, and that's why right here, he opens himself up to a pass rush. Once again, opens the door too quickly. Needs to stay square longer and needs to not panic and open up so early. Open up just a little bit later with that outside hip.
What would be some things that they would work on with a guy like Scherff, if that's coachable? I mean, what are some things that they would do?
It's just muscle memory. It would just basically be, making him take his steps square, having him take. There's different types of sets. You can have a quick set is where you kind of reach out and get on the defender quickly. Another one would be the vertical set where it's really almost going straight backwards, which I don't really think Brandon Scherff needs to do that very often. There's different angles that you can set out towards your defensive ends or outside linebackers. If you need to set a little bit wider, so you can kind of widen it out so they don't beat you around the corner. Learn to do that, but with more square shoulders. So it's just basic repetitions with a dummy pass rusher. You just want to get them used to not panicking and opening up.
Makes sense.
1st and 10, probably a run play here. Yeah, really, really good stuff here from Brandon Scherff. Gets tripped up there, but let's take another look at this. His first step, he's going to take, watch his first step. His first step is left, little settle step. He's going to go left and get up the field. He's a good, versatile athlete into the second level. And when you make contact, the second level blockers who aren't very good, it's because they lack a good change of direction and they don't break down and get control of their body on the move before they make contact. Here you see Scherff has a willing target. Linebacker doesn't really avoid him and just steps right into a block. And with Scherff, let's see if he brings his hips. He makes contact. Let's see if he rolls his hips up underneath him. He does. The thing gets tripped up a little bit. Didn't finish it like you want. But when you make contact, here's where Lane Johnson, okay, you see right there. Let's go back. I want you to see the point of impact and then watch him bring his hips and his feet with him.
Yeah, it's very easy to see here. I like this a lot.
You see, engage, and then those hips come up underneath him, and he gets tripped up by his own man, number 17. A problem Lane Johnson has with the Eagles now and with Oklahoma, he would make good contact on the second level, but he wouldn't bring his feet up underneath him, so he would slide off of blocks. And so when you see a guy fall off of blocks on the second level, an offensive lineman who can't stay engaged, many times it's because he's not bringing his feet underneath him so that he secures that block.
Makes sense. No, and when you get, that's really great to see in terms of how the guy delivers his power here, even if in this case he does get tripped up. Good stuff.
Sets out there. You see much better job here of, and still, there's still an issue with Scherff because you want him right there upon contact. You want him to be a little bit more flat back, just a little bit more flat back. And I can't really see where his hands are right now. It's a little bit tough. So I can't really tell you about
a little
hand
outside his
placement.
shoulder on his sleeve on the outside arm.
It's okay to have the hands high so you can steer the guy where you want him, but you don't, as you mentioned, Matt, you don't want it outside on that sleeve. It's easy to get your hands defeated that way. And right here, Scherff is too strong to be giving up that much push around the edge consistently. This is technique that has to be, worked on.
What's interesting is I can see it a little clearer here where the defender's got his arms basically on the outside part of Scherff's numbers on each side of his chest, and Scherff's got his arms on the outside. And he's trying to slide his outside arm underneath the arm of the defender while he's turning, and you see him with his inside arm actually chopping down on the inner elbow of the defender's inside arm as the guy turns the corner.
Which is why he loses balance here. So Scherff, I mean, look, did Scherff get his block completed? Technically, yes, but there's way too much heat around the quarterback's feet. So, I mean, that's not what you want because your quarterback is going to have a hard time making this throw if you've got a guy right there. Your guy is down at his feet.
Yeah. I do it's kind of funny though. You watch him chop on the arm, and it's almost like someone breaking the glass on a fire extinguisher with a fire raging out of control here. which is, I mean, it's kind of neat to see and think about it in that standpoint. Is that he's, he like you said, he gets the job done, but he's got to call the emergency to,
Okay, so a quarterback's got somebody right there at his back foot. Right. Let's take a look at now. Look what happens on this throw. And I'm not putting this on Brandon Scherff, and I'm not saying that pressure, the pocket's collapsing a little bit. But here's a guy right there on his back foot. He's got pressure right there where the pocket's been pushed. And look what happens to this throw. Comes up short, doesn't get the velocity and the distance on it that he needs. And it's one of those things that shows up. It can be a killer for you offensively.
Absolutely, because not every, just like when we talk about what competency is for positions, a competent quarterback isn't always going to be one who's going to be able to make those throws in a compressed pocket like that with the pressure bearing down on his backside.
All right, pretty good job here. Now, what you're going to see from Scherff, this is in the NFL. They use what's called it's called a Gallop Step. You may see this when you. Right now, it's a zone read play, so the defensive end isn't going to be touched. This is going to be the responsibility of the quarterback to read him and either pull it or give it. So Brandon Scherff, what he should do here, and I don't think he does a very good job of it, he's not using the kind of the saddle step. It's the gallop step, rather, where you kind of gallop over. It looks a little funny, but you gallop over to help secure that nose. He's supposed to get his hand. Once he gets his hand on him, he can turn his attention and get up the field to the second level block. Now let's pause it and let's watch here. Is the first thing we want to look for is this nose secured? And we'll stop it. Stop. I think he could do a little bit better job of getting a little more push, but doesn't look like something that's going to kill the play. We'll see. But his job is to make sure that block is secured, and then the second one is the climb to the second level. This is all about timing. You want to be able to – all zone blocking is really about timing. And right here, it's the running back's job also to set this block up. And I'm not sure the quarterback made the right read here. Let's go back and see, because Scherff in a perfect world would just be up on let's stop it here. This is an inside zone play. We'll stop. This inside zone play, part of the running back's job is to press the line of scrimmage as hard as he can so that the linebackers flow and then they overflow. And then what Brandon Scherff will be able to do here is wash down that inside linebacker on the next level. You can use your pointer there. The inside linebacker closest to him is who his responsibility is. And if you get him flowing hard with the play, then number one, if the defensive end is going to crash down, then that's an easier run for the quarterback on that zone read. He'll pull it and run. So right now this running back really needs to flow hard towards, I would say, towards that guard and center combination. Really keep flowing hard, make those linebackers flow, and then Brandon Scherff should have a wash down block, which is to take that linebacker and continue pushing him towards the right and then the running back will cut back behind that for a big game on the inside zone. But right now, you see where that, and this isn't offensive line play, but this is a quarterback making a bad read, I think. Right here, you see the defensive end is way too close on this, and so this quarterback probably should have pulled that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And you look even here, you see the outside angle that this nose tackle has on the guard to be able to shed this block.
So he really wasn't. So Scherff probably could have done a little bit more to secure that block, but that, this is hardly on Brandon Scherff. I think he gets his job done. Let's watch that second level block on the inside backer. Flows, take him where he wants to go, buries him, did his job.
Yep.
I think he's a good zone scheme tackle, a guy who can give you some power, which can be a little bit rare for tackles in the zone scheme. I think a team running zone is going to be interested in him. Good step. All right, reach block. Let's see how he finishes. Stays engaged. Let's run it to the conclusion. Pancake. Got it done. All right, his first step here. We'll stop right there. He knows that his job right now, he's got that defensive end is widened out. So his first step has to be a wide step outside. And so his entire aim right now is to get on the other side of the helmet, the left shoulder pad of the defensive end. Now, you don't necessarily have to get them turned. You do need to get them moving, and you want to get push. You want to have control of that defensive end so you can either kick him out or kick him back in. But the only way to do that is to get control of the situation, and the best way to do that is to get that reach block. So we'll watch his feet, how quickly he gets wide. Then let's watch his outside arm and see his hand placement and see how he does to get control of the situation. And then after that, we want to see if he can get some push to create those seams for the running back. Let's go back for a second. One thing that's important here is a lot of people will think it needs to be a really wide outside step. It needs to be more of a power step. You want to be, every step you take as an offensive lineman, you have to be prepared to move back inside as well in case somebody stunts inside. So you have to have a change of direction to go left or right to be able to handle inside moves. So that's something that's not necessarily going on this play, but something to look for is a power step. Don't get a wide step all the time because that opens you up to inside moves. So his first step is a power step. Even though it's not wide, his first 2 to 3 steps do allow him to widen out. And he didn't reach too early. Here's another important thing, Matt. Don't reach early to try to make your block. Wait until the last minute. He's still waiting, and then he engages, rolls those hips. So you can already see he's got leverage now. So now he's got the leverage. He gets the arms extended, and he just starts to lean into it and push. See him turn those hips and turn the corner on him, drives him, finishes him, and it's up to the other guys.
And you can see too that for him it's about that getting that position first and not extending his arms as much. It's more about, am I in position? I can get my arms in there as long as my body's in a place where I can then use my arms to manipulate the situation.
Exactly. Get position first, get the feet, win with the feet first, and then let your natural power and technique with the hips win for you. And that's what he did. Got the position, and look at that right hip. He is getting around the corner. He's low. He's got the ability to flex and to explode into his block. That's where you need that hip flexibility that he shows. And there you see he kind of steps into it, rolls his butt up underneath him. And
you can see the man turn immediately when the explosion is right here. When he makes that turn, that turns the shoulders.
So he's right now, look where he's squared the line of scrimmage, and he's got the defensive end turn. This is something that Wade Phillips and Jerry Angelo talked about in Scouting Academy with us when we filmed their sessions, is if you're a defensive end, we'll pause it for 1 second. This is going to be a defensive end talk or defensive line talk. When you see J.J. Watt, for example, who's a premier pass rusher, but we can really go any pass rushers on the interior or on the outside. Wade and Jerry both talked about the fact that you don't want to be able to read their names from behind. You don't want to see their entire butt. You want to be able to see guys who are turning their hips and turning their shoulders and making themselves skinny as they get angles to rush the passer. However, against the run, You want to see guys who can stay flat, who can stay square, and who can dominate at the point of the attack with their arms extended, offensive linemen out, where they're controlling with their arms. They've got their arms out, and they've got control of the situation, both arms engaged and extended on the offensive lineman, and then flat to the line of scrimmage. Go back to the last play. It's the exact opposite for what we see from the defensive end. Look at this. His shoulders are already turned on the running play. He wasn't able to stay flat. Scherff got him turned, and as soon as he got him turned, Brandon Scherff wins. Watch this. Is he staying flat to the line of scrimmage with his shoulders? Nope, and it gets worse here. Turned, and from here, Brandon Scherff can just bury him.
Yeah, it's over.
You know who does a great job? Watch the Miami Dolphins and even the St. Louis Rams. The Rams should be so much better against the run than they are. Michael Brockers does a good job. Jared Odrick with the Miami Dolphins. Go watch Dolphins' defensive line. They do a good job of winning that battle, of standing up the offensive linemen, and then being able to read and shed. Power formation. All right, just basic pass pro. Wanted it to look like a run. No problem. Max protect. All right, next quarter. So we're going to take a look at Brandon Scherff from this angle. Play action and to a zone. So right there, all he wants to do is he wants to really sell the fact that that's going to be a run. He takes that wide step outwards. The defensive end goes with him. He engages, locks him out. Case closed. You know, defensive linemen are reading keys on offensive linemen. So a lot of times, if that offensive lineman takes a step left, then the defensive end is going with them. So you get them going in the direction you want, and then you decide whether or not, especially on zone plays, if you want to kick them out or watch them back down inside. You take the player where he wants to go.
Makes sense.
You don't fight it. All right, just basic block down there. One of the reasons we're looking at Michigan State is they had such a good defense last year, and you want to get a look at a physical team against Brandon Scherff. Little overload look to his side, and they're rolling the pocket.
So when you look at a play like this, and you see him looking inside first, and then the outside guy's coming, can you talk a little bit about that?
You know, that's probably better left for a coach. I'm not really sure what his responsibilities are right there. I think the first thing he wants to make sure is that there's no games coming from the outside where you see, because let's go back. You know, you see a twist right here, but it's a rolling pocket, so the twist really is meaningless. You're going to see what they do is, let's look at the stand-up nose. You see the stand-up, that's what we call mixer. And okay, we'll stop right there. Let's look at the stand-up defensive end and the stand-up nose. They're just going to run what is essentially a twist. But because this is a rolling pocket, it kind of falls apart. If this would have been a basic pocket pass, Brandon Scherff's responsibility would have been to block, probably to seal off the inside edge for that nose tackle that would be basically trying to, come around the corner of that guard. So he would have needed to seal down inside.
Makes sense.
So he's looking for that, but since it's a rolling pocket, there's never really that threat.
Right.
Now, it didn't seem like he wasn't quite as aware of that corner coming off the edge as quickly as he needed to be, but got a hand on him, got to push past the pocket, so he did his job.
Yep. And understanding, having to ask a coach and that type of communication that scouts are able to have about certain plays and ask is such a key part of being able to evaluate, I would imagine, on a pro level, is being able to have that context and get access to it.
Okay. Inside power step, nothing to see here. Blocks down, doesn't widen out, keeps this, the gap between he and the guard very tight there. Good job.
Okay.
All right. Quick throw. Tackle's going to be asked. Here's one where you want to look for that flexibility because there's a lot of time a quick throw is made, and this is kind of predetermined anyway. This isn't him deciding this. You'll notice both tackles are cut blocking. There's going to be, my guess is there's going to be a similar throw option for the quarterback to the right, and what they're trying to do is just knock the hands down. It's not necessarily about knocking the guys to the ground, although you'd like to. It is about getting the hands down so when you throw, there's no hands in the passing lane because it's going to be a quick throw out there. And you'll notice, where's the hands for the defensive end? They were down, but now they're back up quickly, but he's also been run past the throwing lane.
Yeah, the lane is clear at that point.
See right here, hands down, but he defeats it.
Yeah.
It's a really athletic play by the defensive end. On the other side, the right tackle was able to cut his man all the way down. The ability to dip down and be flexible, and some guys can't cut block. They're not flexible enough. The other thing, though, Matt, is that there's a lot of guys who aren't very good with their aim points. And that's something that needs to be coached. And there are other offensive linemen who are squeamish about making cut blocks, period, especially on the move. And, that's almost a separate discussion that has to be had.
And why are they squeamish? Is it about getting hit in the head?
Yeah, about injury. It's about injury, about worrying about hurting a guy, taking his legs out.
Makes sense.
Injuring a knee, things like that.
And that's a part of the game that, that's an emotional part of the game that's would be an interesting discussion just from the standpoint of, I had Ryan Riddle on here, and we were looking at Shaq Thompson a couple of weeks ago, and there was a play where Thompson was heading downhill to make a tackle, but there were linemen pursuing from the backside, and the way that he went in there to make the tackle, Ryan commented, he said, there are a lot of guys that would be afraid to go in there and make this tackle because if they miss, they're going to shoot right into the backside pursuit and get nailed. And he says, and that's a fear that people don't think about who don't play the game or may not watch the game at this level. And I always find it fascinating to be able to talk about, look, there's a human element to this game, and the idea of that everyone has jobs and certain aspects of jobs where you think, I'm not sure I feel comfortable with this aspect of what I'm doing here, but it's an important part of the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something to consider. It's really not something we consider. It's something they consider more than anything.
Yeah.
Pass pro, Scherff. He's got some minor. I still would like to see him give up a little less push in the pocket. But I don't see, his punch seems timed pretty well. There's nothing I can really say about that. I think that was a pretty good rep.
Yeah. And the defender gets his hand into the chest first on that particular play, but he's in position. Scherff's in position.
Play action. And you'll notice now, there's a big difference between Brandon Scherff, the pass protector, and Brandon Scherff, the run blocker. This is a run block look. He gets out there, and when he makes contact, he gets the hips up under him, just like a guy who's, is a weightlifter and has that weight room technique. He's got some of that boom, gets his hips up under him, gets control of the situation with his hands, rides him outside. It's not a problem at all. But then in pass pro, when it's basic pass pro, I think Scherff has some issues he has to get worked on, but I think they're all coachable. I like the fact that on the run, he can jar guys and control the situation.
Yeah, you see the shoulders pop up on those defenders when he hits them immediately as a product of his technique and position.
There's the extension. Pretty good. Turns them. Brandon Thomas from Clemson last year was one of my favorite tackles to watch. Go back and watch old draft breakdown videos of Brandon Thomas. He has an unusual move where he's able to torque guys from his shoulders, almost like a wrestling move that I think is interesting.
Mm.
All right, so let's go back here. This is okay. This is perfect. This is a great look. Here's what we're going to look at here, and we'll go back to the beginning, and I'll tell you what to look for.
All right.
Let's go right back to the beginning of the play.
We'll let this one run out so I can get it there.
All right. Okay. So here's what we're going to look for here. The very first thing you're going to see Brandon Scherff do is he's going to set outside but he realizes the rush is coming back inside, so he's going to take another power step inside to handle that inside move. Then he recognizes that it's a twist and there's a man coming over the top. So we want to see how quickly he recognizes, disengages, and re-engages on the pass rusher who's looping over the outside. The guy who I noticed had some real issues with that last year was Xavier Su'a-Filo, who's the rookie with the Houston Texans. When you watch some UCLA games, he seems slow to recognize those TE twists, and what a TE means is the tackle goes first and the end comes underneath. If it's an ET, which you're going to see here, the end comes down inside to set up the tackle going over the top, but the end is still trying to win his battle from a leverage standpoint and get inside of the quarterback. But, you know, almost like a pick play with basketball too. So let's watch this ET stunt. There's the end, and here's the tackle trying to come around. Brandon Scherff hands off his man, disengages, and re-engages. Now he needs to finish better. He needs to, you know, he recognizes it, power step inside, passes him off to the guard, picks up the man coming over the top. But you see right here, stop. Okay, when he makes contact, look at the point of contact, Matt. Let's go back, and the point of contact, I want you to look where his feet are and where his balance is. Stop. See that?
Yeah.
No base on the outside, and this is easy for him to get thrown and tossed.
Yeah.
So it didn't get him, but like I said, flat feet and square body position is where you'd like to be before you make that contact.
Makes sense. Because once he gets his foot down, he's being pushed from the inside, and he's already being pushed before his foot came down, and that just knocks him to the outside.
But one of the things we talked about with functional strength, this is why functional strength is so important. You know, Brandon Scherff is going to be able to fight certain things off even when his technique isn't where it needs to be. A guy who's not functionally strong will get beat badly when his technique is off, and it will get quarterbacks hurt.
Yeah, because he'd be on the ground if he wasn't as strong as he was.
Right.
It would just be a clear path to getting nailed here during the act of throwing. So yeah, let's just look at that one more time, because that's really good to see when you talk about the feet with this. He's got pushed, and yeah.
Your power leg, by the way, on your pull away for your offensive lineman, whatever the weight, your weight should always be on the inside foot. So even though you're taking that kick step outside, your weight is still on the inside foot so that you have the proper balance in case somebody makes an inside move on you. Basic play action. Nothing to see here, boss. Nothing to see here. All right, same inside zone look we saw earlier, but it's a pass off of it. So Brandon Scherff just kind of, just a little step to secure the inside. He's just trying to, right here, it's important that he sells it. Some offensive linemen don't do a good job of selling it. Go watch the Cleveland Browns, and you'll see what an offensive line is supposed to look like when they're selling that hard outside zone play or inside zone play. Linebackers have to believe it's a running play, or they'll sniff that something's up and they'll start to look for the pass and they'll drop into coverage. I think Scherff could maybe do a little bit better job of selling this, but that's kind of a minor deal. Just something to look for. See how hard offensive linemen, if they just pop straight up and kind of go through the motions, that's not good for an offensive line. If you see offensive lines that really sell you that it's going to be a running play, that means they're going to have a more effective bootleg play action.
And I would imagine that the Browns-Steelers game would be a good example of what you're talking about.
Every Browns game is. I think they're the most functional offensive unit in pro football right now from a running game standpoint.
That's good stuff. As an old-times Browns fan growing up, it's nice to see that coming back.
All right, let's go back here. And his job, you know, everything, he squares up, he gets outside. The only thing that maybe you could say here, and this is a very difficult block, for Scherff to go out there, and I think that may be Dennard that he's trying to get blocked, who is an outstanding cornerback and a very tough run stopper. You know, you see what I think Scherff needs to be higher. You could say hindsight's 20/20, but you would much rather once again have the cornerback try to go underneath you than over the top, because if he goes underneath you, he's going to be behind the play potentially. So Scherff maybe needs to look at an aim point that's a little bit maybe towards the 15-yard line as opposed to the 14-yard line. You see he's kind of flattening out right there. Stay a little bit higher. But I'm nitpicking. I mean, that's awfully tough to get this block in the open field. And it's a good job by the corner, too. Six in the box here. My guess is they're checking to a run play. Boot action, it looks like. Nope. Outside zone. All right, let's take a look at that again.
Okay.
Quarterback probably reading 6 in the box with 7. The safety over the top will pause it. So he probably checked. We saw what looked like a check to the outside zone. And this is to the open side. The open side means the side without the tight end. It's not always easy to run to that side. Right now, here's what the job is going to be. I'll run you through this from the center. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Let's just take a look at an outside zone, how it's supposed to run. Right now, from a responsibility standpoint, it looks like they're going to have the center. We'll start from the center. The center is just going to try to get inside, get across the face, and get inside of that nose. Your guard, it looks like, is going to continue to move towards the left and then climb up and take on that outside will backer that's up there playing inside backer, the will. And Brandon Scherff's job right now is to basically just engage and then kick out the defensive end. The right guard is going to try to get the Mike linebacker blocked. More than likely, I'm just guessing this is how they're going to play it. And then your right tackle's job is just to get that 3 technique block. So let's see how they handle this. Let's pause it right after as we see them. Right now, there's a check. And we'll pause it. Okay, so the center guard. Let me look at the center and right guard. What may be happening? Sometimes the center will engage, and then the right guard will come and then cut that nose, and the center will try to climb up to a linebacker. That's one way to handle it. It's all about your angles, Matt. You've got to figure out the smart angles. Sometimes it will depend. If a team's got very athletic guards, they'll try to just climb that guard right up to the second level and get that linebacker. There are other times where they feel like, okay, this nose is going to be tough for us to block, so we're going to make sure that he's the primary guy we get blocked. So let's basically double team him and cut him if need be. So right now you already see this play is probably doomed to fail because the edge, Brandon Scherff is having the edge set on him a little bit, and the line of scrimmage, look how the line of scrimmage is already being reestablished on the Iowa side. That's going to make it tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pause right there. Now you're already seeing linebackers are getting downhill, and they have not been touched yet. We're at the mesh point between quarterback and running back, and linebackers are still running free. You got a backside cut on number 91, trying to create that backside lane. So right now, if the right guard can get his block on the Mike linebacker, and if everyone can wash down, you already see that. You see that Will linebacker up at the top? Look how far he's flowing outside because he's responsible in case that play turns. But you already see the defensive end has now gotten outside of Brandon Scherff. So the play has to be turned back inside. His read is defensive end down inside the defensive tackle. So his read is he's got to one cut and get downhill. So his best chance is that backside lane between the right guard and the right tackle. If the right tackle can get his guy blocked. If the right guard.
Guard can get on this mic.
But look at the center is losing his block. The center did not get that guy contained. He's now been shed. And the inside linebacker is inside of that guard, the complete thing. And see that backside block, number 91? Look who's back up and running towards the ball.
Yep.
Complete disaster.
It's one big giant triangle converging on one point here.
Mm-hmm.
Minimal gain. So let me ask you this, Lance. This is great stuff that you're giving here. I want to be obviously conscious and considerate of your time. How are we doing right now?
I think we got another. I'm good for another 15 minutes.
That sounds good. Then we'll watch the rest of Scherff, and obviously, would love to have you come back anytime. We'll watch some more players down the line. I'll probably be doing this weekly with a variety of guests for as long as I'm doing this. So,
Let's go back again. Looks like a failed twist here. That
okay.
same kind of ET twist we talked about before. Brandon Scherff takes a step outside, a slide step, recognize him coming back inside. Let's see how he changes direction. Stops. Now his weight's a little too far outside, but see how quickly he was able to change his direction back inside
Yeah.
and engage with power. That's what you want to see.
See it one more time here.
A power step back inside.
That's where he went outside and then drops that inside foot back.
And it's not really so much about dropping that step as it's taking a power step back inside, but got the job done regardless. What I like seeing is he recognized and can respond to it quickly with an inside move. The change of direction is quick and seamless.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like about him, even in these oh crap moments where like maybe the technique wasn't perfect, the technique didn't work out, or something didn't work out initially as he planned. Like that one where we saw the quarterback throw the interception earlier in the game, and he chops the elbow of that man to knock him down. So at least, even though the pocket's crowded, he doesn't force a sack, doesn't allow a sack there. It's kind of like he has some fail-safe moves in his vocabulary, even if they're not ideal.
Yeah, his fail-safe is his athleticism and strength. It's one of the reasons I really like him, but he still needs to be coached technically. And let's face it, I mean, that's a good coaching staff over there. So sometimes guys don't take the coaching and do with it what they're supposed to.
Makes sense. And are some guys just slower to learn? I mean, even though they will learn, but they're just a little slower at it.
Some guys slow to learn. Some guys don't trust their strength. A big problem for a lot of offensive linemen is they're leaners as a pass blocker because they don't trust their strength, so they get used to leaning on people. Well, that's what's happening with Eric Fisher. Eric Fisher is a big leaner right now, and that's easy to get ragdolled and beat.
Makes
You got to
sense.
trust your technique, and you got to trust your strength.
And that's harder to do, I would imagine, than people realize.
Well, it's psychological. I mean, you got to get strong enough, and then you also have to trust your techniques and that you don't break down in the middle of a pass rep. You got to stay technically sound. All right, zone read, secured his outside block, and it got to the second level. Iowa not really functioning as a great single unit with their zone plays right now, which is kind of essential. All right, kind of buries the guy again. Thought he did a little bit better job of staying closed for a little bit longer. We'll watch his first two steps. There's that jab, that quick jab. In the NFL, as soon as that left hand comes out, that defensive end, if he's a capable defensive end, he's going to wait to see that left hand, and then there's going to be a counter move where he's going to slap that away. And if Brandon Scherff is leaning forward at the point of impact, you're going to see him get beaten easily around the corner. That's why you got to have that weight. You got to be more upright.
Because in an egregious example of that, he would probably be falling flat on his face.
Yeah, and that's why understanding technique, Matt, is important, especially for line play, because we look at this rep and most people will say, oh, okay, well, he pancaked him. He was fine. That's a pancake. That's not really a pancake. I mean, he did his job, but what I need to know is how much does that defensive end resemble an NFL defensive end? I would tell you that from a technique standpoint, he's going to see much better pass rusher who will give him some hand challenges that could make him look foolish. So I need to know if what he's doing is the right technique. That's why you got to go, check with offensive line coaches.
And this is an example of probably about 24 things that, if you're watching this tape today, that are really great things to learn from Lance. And one of them here is a great example of watching football to project for the NFL, not projecting, not looking at what you see in the college game, but also taking that extra step and saying, how does this project to an NFL situation? What is it that I have to imagine or see based on technique? Why is that? If you understand the technique, as Lance said, then you are able to then look at what are the possibilities of what could have happened in this play, and if the technique isn't there, what is the end result? And watching NFL games and being able to see NFL tape, learning, and what Lance is saying, even more importantly, being able to have, learn from people who are in the NFL. They can supply you an understanding of what those techniques are, and then you can project that player's techniques to that pro situation.
Yeah, and it's all about projecting. That's why understanding the combination of where you are now versus your physical skill set and where you can be in the future is so important. It's never going to match up with public perception at times. Give me an example. A player who is, I'm trying to think of an example on offensive line, but there's going to be lots of players who are productive in college, and that doesn't end up meaning anything in the pros, because you got to look at who they're playing against, and then do they have traits that they can project on the next level? If they don't have certain traits at certain positions, it's not going to matter. Here's a running play. I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to ask you an example of a guy. This might have been a long time ago, but what about Robert Gallery? What would have been Robert Gallery's story?
I wasn't really looking at O-linemen as closely then, but I remember my dad fought against Gallery. He was with the Cleveland Browns, and Cleveland tried to trade 2 firsts to move up to the Raiders for Robert Gallery, and the Raiders, being the Raiders, said absolutely not. We would not trade it. We would not give up that pick for Robert Gallery. They wanted to trade 2 firsts for Robert Gallery. My dad had a big problem with the fact that he got beat by a bunch of inside moves. And so the question was, is he functionally strong enough to handle change of direction pass rushes and secure blocks? It was a big concern for his. It was a big concern for Russ Landy. And Russ Landy gave Robert Gallery a very low grade. And the Cleveland staff, it was Butch Davis and Pete Rodriguez, or is it Pete Garcia? I think it's Pete Garcia, not the special teams coach who used to be in Seattle. I think it's Pete Garcia. They were, it's my understanding that they just couldn't believe what Russ Landy said about Robert Gallery, but he ended up being right about Gallery. And that's one of the reasons he failed, is he didn't have the functional strength needed for change of direction pass rushes.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so let's look at this last play, and then we'll conclude our session here. How does that sound to you?
Sounds good.
All right.
I could sit here and do it all day long. I'm just getting a little hungry. You know how it goes.
Hey, I understand, and I've enjoyed this immensely with you, and I know that certainly I think everyone who's watching this is going to get a lot out of watching offensive, or at least line tackle play from you today. Let's
slide back inside here to the beginning of the play. You can usually tell outside inside zone by the step of the. That's an outside zone play. The step of the running back. And right now, the job of Brandon Scherff is to get his guy. You either want to wash him down or get him turned. And I would say right here, you want to get him turned. The Scherff is on the outside shoulder, so it's going to be very difficult to get him turned now.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the leverage.
Guy's just totally coming across his face here.
But you see the strength. You see him use the hips. You see him roll the hips up under him. You see the strength. It's not like he gets beat. It's just that you would like to see him. Let's see the first step. Okay, one of the things that he can do is before making that, it's called give ground to get ground. He can kind of drop step in the bucket a little bit, and his first step can kind of be behind the line of scrimmage, and he can flatten out a little bit more before he makes contact. It's just a little thing he can do to try to gain that leverage on this play. I take that back. That almost looks like an inside zone step, but it's not really blocked like it. Let's look at the next and see what happens on the next one, Matt.
Okay.
I'll tell you what comes through on this is that Michigan State was very well coached defensively. which we knew that about last year's team. Uh-oh.
Yep.
And that's another thing. Ferentz is a guy. There's one of two schools of thought. A lot of Wisconsin offensive linemen come out of the. They're very well coached typically. They come out a little topped out. You know, what you see is what you get. I think there's going to be that concern a little bit with Brandon Scherff too, because Ferentz is considered a good offensive line guy. So I would assume Ferentz is back in the game since he's still on the draft breakdown. There's
Yeah.
another TE twist. We'll let him keep playing, or ET rather. Yeah, way too much. I mean, let's go back to that for a second, man. I'd like to see him take a stand a little earlier, drop that anchor, and stop. Let's see when he makes contact, the point of contact. Boom. Right there, he needs to get his arms extended, drop his butt, and brace up like we just saw him on that running play. And see, he's trying to, but those feet aren't flat. He's getting pushed back. He doesn't have the leverage. That's a leverage issue. It's not a talent. It's not a strength issue. It's a matter of winning at the point of attack. And then literally, boom, right there, his feet are not flat. They're not up under him, and he's not sending a jolting punch. Instead, right now, his hand looks like it's on the shoulder pad. It's a little too wide, and he's not able to really sink in and fight against that as well as he should be. And you see him getting backed up. He tries to take a stand here, drop his hips, and now it's a matter of just hold on for dear life and try to literally hold.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because you think about just the concept of anchoring yourself for balance and having your feet in the ground flat, and it totally makes sense that would be the case.
And there's lots of movement that goes into it, and it's almost like it's like a boxer. You know, if a boxer's punching off of when he's bouncing around, he's not going to have the same snap on his punch. But here's a boxer who's moving left and right like Muhammad Ali would, or even Floyd Mayweather, whoever, if you want to go current. But the ability, as you're moving, to boom, sit down quickly, turn the hips, and explode, it's the same thing with an offensive lineman. You can be moving, and then settle in with your feet, explode into the defender, and take control. And that's what I'm asking Brandon Scherff to do.
So give me an idea of, we'll end this at this stage, and give us an idea of some of the things that you saw today and what you will be looking for down the line, just kind of in summary here.
All right, here's my Brandon Scherff scouting report, an audio scouting report. Shows good flexibility, good use of hands, fairly strong, needs to be careful about letting his hands get too wide as in pass protection. Doesn't always make balanced contact upon punch with his pass protection. Needs more technique work. Tends to open his shoulders too early against pass rushers. Can easily get to second level blocks and screen blocks on the outside. Has the ability to break down in space and make blocks. Does a great job of rolling hips under him and controlling players with strong hands and good hips. Plus run blocker at the point of attack or in space or on the move. Can play power scheme or zone scheme in the NFL. Still would like to see more from him at left tackle before I decide if he should play left or right tackle in the NFL.
Great. So, and teams that play zone scheme would be more the ones that you would probably say are going to be most interested in him, at least from what you see thus far.
Well, he's a good drive blocker, so I would say all teams are going to be interested in him. The reason I mentioned zone schemes is it's kind of rare to have a tackle who can get the kind of push that he can get and the power he plays with, and he moves well for a big man. So I just think that you look at a team like Detroit. If Detroit wanted to start using a little bit more zone with Reggie Bush and Joyke Bell, and they said, hey, let's let's plug him in at right tackle, and let's have a real power guy on the right side and left side. Then all of a sudden they might actually be able to control games with their running game and ask less of Matt Stafford, which all of a sudden, I think the same thing that you're seeing with the Cowboys, you're going to see results. I think Detroit, who has an elite defensive front right now, if they can control games with their running game, then you're looking at a team that can make a huge, jump up the standings in the NFC. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's take control of the edges with our tackles. Riley Reef is a pretty good run blocker, not as good as a pass protector, and I'd say the same thing can be said here. So you don't want to give up too much in terms of pass protection, but the ability to dominate on the ground can have, or at least if not dominate, do what you want to do on the ground. Then all of a sudden that has a domino effect that can lead to a different philosophy, maybe a little less Matt Stafford throwing it 50 times and a little more controlling the clock, and all of a sudden you have a team like Dallas that really can control games with the ground attack. So that's what one player, Zach Martin, being able to plug him in, Doug Free figuring out what he does, Tyron Smith making that jump to being an elite left tackle, Travis Frederick handles his job at center position, and then more importantly, a commitment to running the football. But you got to have guys you trust on the offensive line, and I think Brandon Scherff is the guy you can trust in the future from a run blocking standpoint. Pass pro still needs some work. I give him, he's a first-round talent. He'll be drafted in the first round, but he's a guy that can get you beat at times his first year in the NFL if he doesn't work on his pass pro technique.
Simply excellent work, Lance, and really did enjoy this session, and I hope that you'll be able to come back with us again and tell everyone again, where they can find your work and where they can listen to you if they decide that rather than listen to their own local radio station, they want to check out what's going on in the Texas area.
Yeah, I'm on every morning from 6 to 9 a.m. Central Time, Sports Talk Radio here in Houston. I will be doing more podcasts with John Harris and John Middlecoff on our site, thesidelineview.com. That's where you can find our work in college and pro football. Scoutingacademy.com I'm part owner of that, and we have Jerry Angelo, Wade Phillips, Charlie Coiner, Steve Loney, John Levra. We have some outstanding coaches teaching you what technique should look like and what it should be so that it helps you become a better evaluator. And Jerry Angelo is teaching the core traits to look for and how to evaluate at every position. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Lance Zierlein or at Sideline FB, as in football, Sideline FB. And anything short of my phone number and address, that's about all the areas you need to get a hold of me.
I think that's more than enough, and you guys need to go do this right now. So thanks again, Lance, for joining us, and
Sure.
This was a great session.
All right, had a